Hello and very welcome along to the NFL Matchbook Betting Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey, and joined, as usual, by the trio, the expert trio, I like to call them, of Rob Pizzola, Fabian Sommer, and Drew Dinsick. Drew, Rob, Sommer, how are you keeping?
Doing well. I mean, it's crazy that so much of NFL season's already gone by. I actually can't even believe it's week 5, and it's just like you snap your fingers and it's crazy where the time goes.
It's one of them. You wait ages for it to come along, Drew, and then all of a sudden it just kind of goes like that.
Yeah, and I think I don't know. Week 4 was a little refreshing, at least in terms of entertainment value. There were some better games. There was some cool. It's getting to see Ravens Bills, go down to the wire was pretty awesome. I think in general we pivot now from, what was your prior? Was it better than the market? To, what do you do now that we have data on these teams? How much do you weight what we've seen through 4 weeks versus what do we expect ultimately from these guys?
Yeah, very interesting stuff. First thing we're going to do is just do a little bit of week 4 takeaways, a little bit of a review. Rob, I was very fascinated, and to be honest, it was something I wanted to talk about anyway regarding the Cowboys quarterback situation. Take it away. Dak Prescott has essentially declared himself fit for the weekend. So whether he starts or not remains to be seen.
Right. You see the Cowboys symbol behind me. I am a Cowboys fan. I just find it crazy that people are like, oh, when Dak is healthy enough to play, maybe they should stick with Cooper Rush at quarterback, which I get. People are like fascinated with wins and losses. And this is more of like, a what have you done for me lately take. People's, they saw Dak in week 1. He looked terrible against the Bucs, and now Cooper Rush is winning games. But if we look at a pure success rate standpoint, if we take the 32 starting quarterbacks in the NFL, Cooper Rush is 21st this year. Now, I'm not saying that's bad, but that's backup quarterback material, right? Like, you're not going to go and win. The upside on Cooper Rush is minimal compared to what Dak Prescott brings to the table. Now, do I want the Cowboys to rush Prescott back? No, but it serves as a reminder that the vast majority of NFL fans only remember what they've seen recently. And I think it's like the most insane thing that Dak versus Cooper Rush is even a debate or a consideration. When Dak is healthy, he plays, plain and simple, and he plays until he's not healthy. There's no quarterback controversy here. So that's one that, like, my takeaway, I guess we know this already, but I just, recency bias is a hell of a drug. Let's put it that way.
That's a good way of putting it. Lads, any thoughts, Drew, Suma, on that in general? Like, Cooper Rush is 4-0 as a starter, so is there any sort of continuity argument at all?
I can I generally agree with Rob's sentiment. I will also say though that there are other people who will be like, when Dak comes back, I'm going to upgrade this team meaningfully. And I think in reality, the truth is somewhere in between, right? Like, Cooper Rush is playing with house money. There is no pressure on him at all. And in general, like, he didn't come through a development pipeline like Dak did, where the offensive line was perfect and he had a million receivers to throw to, so Cooper Rush kind of operating within the framework of what he has out there, compared to Dak potentially maybe not looking as good as what would be expected, considering we've seen him throughout his career with better offensive line and better weapons. I think that there is a happy medium here, but credit to Cooper Rush, because Cooper Rush, he's made himself some serious backup money for a long time out of this run.
Suma?
I mean, straight facts, 4-0, you can't deny that. But they also played Bengals, Giants, Commanders. Bengals was a really ugly game, so one would assume that a healthy Dak Prescott would also be 3-1 now, with better efficiency numbers. And no one would question anything about the quarterback situation. So, pretty wild to see some of those discussions in social media.
Yeah, and Suma, stick with you on the Steelers then. You wanted to speak about Mike Tomlin and deciding to throw in Pickett in that second half, rushing him back, and now there's a decision to be made again this weekend.
I mean, everyone saw Mitch Trubisky playing the first 3 weeks. Everyone saw him on primetime at Cleveland. And Mike Tomlin thinks that it's not a good time to use the mini bye week to go to Kenny Pickett, the guy they drafted in the first round. He needs another 2 quarters to see the same Mitch Trubisky that we have seen all season long, that we have seen for 5 years in the NFL now, to make a decision on the fly to go with Kenny Pickett for the second half. Like, I mean, this is not rational behavior. I mean, Mitch Trubisky didn't show us anything that we didn't already know about him in that first Jets half. And then he makes the decision that's completely mind-boggling to me.
Fascinating stuff there. And Drew, you're one, you wanted to talk about the NFC Bloods from the last couple of years and your kind of decision to whether you buy low on futures potentially, or is there perhaps a changing of the guard?
Yeah. We came into the season. The favorites for each division were kind of the teams that have been doing well in the regular season, the playoffs, last handful of years. I'm, of course, referring to the likes of the Packers, the Rams, and the Bucks. All three teams failed to cover in week 4. Packers Packers won outright, but it was lucky. All three probably should have lost. And if you look across sort of the first quarter of the season, these are teams that are expected to be in the mix to ultimately, do something come, January in the playoffs. But I don't think the market certainly doesn't have any confidence in these guys right now, which presents an opportunity to either sort of stake your flag now. Like, okay, they will turn it around. A team like the Bucks is probably the best example. Like the Bucks schedule flips from the first 4 weeks where everyone knew this was an exceptionally tough test out of the gate. They had Cowboys, Saints, Packers, Chiefs, first 4. Now they go into a much softer portion of their schedule. And even if the offense takes another month to get anywhere close to what we saw last year, there still should be able to compile some wins. And so the question is now the buy low point on any of these teams? I don't have the answers. I'm going to take a little bit of Bucks this week just because the fact that they get Falcons, Panthers, and Steelers in their next 3 is appealing to me. But at the same time, like, you're counting on them getting healthy, and this may just be a snake bitten season. I did laugh pretty hard last night. We get comments all the time, and when we're doing live streams, and somebody had just made a kind of off the cuff comment, like, it does the fact that Tom Brady left his wife and family for this team, does that bring the locker room together to a degree that we've never seen before? And it's like, well, no, but at the same time, like, he pretty clearly believes he's got a shot at another Super Bowl run here. So in general, not enough kind of outstanding play in the NFC broadly to scare me off of backing a team like the Bucks in the futures market. And I think now, trains leaving the station, especially if they win these next 3 against soft competition.
And very quickly, 12.3 on Matchbook. Is that still a price, or what price did you get involved in on the books?
That's a good price. I like that
12.3.
one. Not bad at all. Yeah, no, I think NFC price appeals to me a little bit more, just because the likelihood that you run into the Bills or the Chiefs in the Super Bowl and you're a 6-point dog is real. But no, I think realistically the Bucks should still be a factor, because again, like, think about, like, when the playoffs roll around, who are you going to make favorite? Yeah. Even on the who are you going to make favorite against Tom Brady in a playoff head-to-head, even on the road, right? Like, the Eagles are eventually going to run into the Bucks in the playoffs. Everybody's going to remember very clearly what happened in last year's playoff games, including the Eagles themselves. And I think the idea that you're gonna have a favorable position in pocket even if they have to go on the road to get it done is real in my mind.
Fascinating stuff there. So, bonus Super Bowl tip for y'all, for those that didn't skip forward straight to the marquee games. So for those that are new to the podcast, we pick about 4 marquee/TV games. Then the guys will share their any other bets, and then best bets. And best bets is where we're keeping official record, or an ROI for the year, which is currently a winning record of 7-5. So let's hope the guys keep that going. We're going to start with the Chargers versus Browns, and quickly to take a look at the betting at matchbook.com. You can back Chargers at 1.77, Browns are 2.2. Point spread is the Browns getting a 2.5. Point start at 1.93. The total is 47.5, shaded towards the under. So yes, Suma, we're going to go to you. For those that obviously aren't aware, I am a Chargers fan. I did make sure this was I asked Sully to pick his 4 games and just to see what he had. And unfortunately, he didn't have Chargers on his running order. They were 5th. So I bumped them straight up to number 1 here. So Suma, take it away. Tell me why Herbert and the Chargers are going to get winning again for 2nd week in a row.
I don't know whether they're going to win, but I slightly lean towards them as of now. I think this line has a very good chance to come down even further. We are now off to 3, looking at 1.5 to 2.5 across the market. And I think with the news that Myles Garrett is likely going to suit up and Keenan Allen might not suit up, I expect more Browns money come into the market as the week goes on. So I would say if you like the Browns, better get them earlier than later. And if you want to bet the Chargers, you will probably have a good shot later in the week. For example, after Friday's final injury reports. I kind of lean towards the Chargers, and if I end up playing them, it will definitely be later in the week because I expect more Browns money. I think lots of people will talk, rightfully so, about the great rush attack of the Browns, which is like top 3 easily in the league right now. They rank first in some metrics, second in some metrics. I think in DVOA they are second to only the Pats right now. And this is a Chargers defense that is usually notoriously bad against the run. And I don't expect them to shut down the Browns defense at all. The Browns should have a decent matchup on the ground. But I also think that the Chargers defense in general has been looking a little bit better against the run than they did last year. They also signed some guys to really be better against the run. They will probably not prevent Nick Chubb from having a few good runs. But also, I think on the other side, the Chargers might actually also have a very, very good matchup on the ground because over the first 4 weeks, the Browns defense might be the worst defense against the run. They rank dead last in PFF's run defense grade. They rank 30th in EPA per rush, 30th in rush DVOA. And outside of a great Falcons run offense, they have only played the Panthers, the Jets, and the Steelers. So it's not like they have faced 4 juggernaut run offenses. So I think the run advantage applies to both sides here. And then this game might eventually come down to who is going to be more explosive and who gets more things done in the passing game. And when it comes to that, I would still rather trust Justin Herbert and his offense, even if there's no Keenan Allen, over Jacoby Brissett and company. The Chargers defense, even though they are without Joey Bosa, they have been kind of decent against the pass, playing better competition this season. They look good against the Chiefs, for example. They look decent against the Raiders. They struggled mightily against the Jags when they lost some guys. But in general, I trust the Chargers defense and the Chargers offense in terms of passing a little bit more than the Browns. And that's why I might end up playing the Chargers later in the week if there's going to be more Browns money.
Yeah, Rob, for you, so you're leaning towards the Browns here. Are you kind of in disagreement with Suma that the Browns will get on top in the passing, or do you just think they'll have more benefited with the run that will ultimately prove the difference?
So I made the Chargers a 1.5 point favorite in this game, so lean slightly towards the Browns. There is a lot that could obviously change that. I'm assuming Myles Garrett will be in. The defensive line injuries for the Browns overall are quite concerning, though, when you consider that every single player on their defensive line, starting defensive line, is questionable, and Jadeveon Clowney doubtful heading into this week. So I am concerned about that. The one thing I will say in terms of the Chargers being better against the run, on surface level, they are. They haven't played a team, though, this year that's top 10 in rushing success rate yet. So if you look at who they've played, Kansas City's probably the best team that can run the ball that they've played. And Kansas City did get into a state where they had to throw a lot in that game as well because they were trailing to the Chargers. I think this is just a massive upgrade. You look at the Browns, they're number 1 in terms of EPA per play offensively, number 4 success rate in terms of running the ball. That's a recipe for keeping Justin Herbert on the sideline. Overall, I am concerned about the Browns defense. I think that personnel-wise, they are better than their actual productivity. I don't know if that's a Joe Woods thing. Really don't. I haven't had an explanation for the Browns defense going on 2 years now because I think their personnel is way better than it is, it's better than they're actually performing. With that said, if Myles Garrett does play, he is facing a backup left tackle. It is a very big disadvantage, I think, that the Chargers are going to have in this game overall. I don't know. I mean, it's just challenging. The last thing I'll say about the Browns is I think that last week's loss to the Falcons, a little bit misleading. Surface level stats did favor the Browns. They did have two situations, one where they got to goal line offense and they couldn't punch it in. Another time where they actually got to a goal line position, they took a holding penalty that dropped them back and they had to settle for a field goal in that game. So ultimately, they end up losing that game. I think that our perception of them has changed pretty drastically over the course of the week because of that specifically. Am I lining up to bet Cleveland here? No, absolutely scared to death of the Browns. And I think that the Chargers potentially could be undervalued in my model because of the one stinker performance where they had so many players injured, just a complete disaster. But to me, it's still Cleveland or nothing type of game.
Yeah, true. For you, you're kind of in agreement with both the lads. You just don't like either defensive matchup here, so you're going for the over here.
Yeah, market's against me here. I think there's going to be points scored. I mean, you don't have to go back that far in recent memory. Week 5 of the 2021 season, these two teams played in LA, and I think the final was 47-42, something thereabouts. And I think in that matchup, a lot of the kind of key points that we're raising here were evident, which is, the Chargers run defense, I still see as a humongous problem. I would point specifically at that Jags game. Jags had a nice lead because of some key turnovers in the first half, and they just pressed the run button nonstop in the second half. And even in drives where they had absolutely no business scoring touchdowns, there were breakaways in 4th and 1 for the touchdown. There was, just unbelievable success from that unit overall. And that's not even that good of a running scheme and or offensive line from a blocking standpoint. And now you draw the first, the best run unit on earth with the Cleveland Browns. So the Browns ultimately sustaining drives and ripping off some pretty substantial runs, I think, is real. And the Cleveland defense, I agree 100% with Rob. They are not playing up to the level of the talent on that team or even close. Through 4 weeks of this season, they have had one of the easiest, if not the easiest schedule overall in terms of strength of opponent. Congratulations on being 2-2, having played the Panthers, the Steelers, the Falcons, and the Jets. Congratulations. It's really, this is a humongous step up in class for them now. And the Chargers, while against certain defenses, their running game has been horrific, and that has made them one-dimensional. And with a weakened offensive line and an injured Herbert, if you're one-dimensional passing, I'm a little nervous if you're going up against some elite pass rushers. But as mentioned, Clowney out, Garrett limited if at all available. And I think a balanced approach here, complementary football with their running attack against a weak run defense in the Browns, combined with Herbert, kind of hitting some home runs. This is an opportunity for the Chargers, in my opinion, to get into the 30s. And I think the Browns can answer, even if they are, still trying, because the Browns, even at a deficit, they still run. That's their entire identity. They don't really ever put the running back on ice, even if they are at a negative game state. So, I think they'll ultimately get into the 20s, high 20s here potentially. And this total to me looks quite low at 47.5. So favorite total of the week for me is this over. And every time I see under money come in, I look at the weather report, just expecting to see 20-mile-an-hour winds all of a sudden, because that's the only thing that I could see really disrupting what would otherwise be a pretty awesome offensive performance.
Yeah, that's a pretty good case made there. So I think we're going to lock that in as the first official bet. Over 47.5 Chargers Browns, currently available at 1.98. So yeah, some good cases for the run for the Browns, pass points for the Chargers. So yeah, let's go for points there. So that's the first bet locked in, and we'll move on to the second game, which is Cowboys versus the Rams. And we'll take a look at the betting as we have it currently on the Matchbook betting exchange. Cowboys can be back to 2.98. The Rams are 1.46. Cowboys getting a 5.5 start at 1.92 with the over available at 43.5. We'll go straight back to you, Drew. Where are you kind of leaning towards in this game? It's a Sunday night, 25:09 here in UK time. You're talking about potentially selling high on Cooper Rush at some point.
Yeah, decidedly annoyed that the market is all in on the Rams already this week. I was very hopeful to get a Rams -3-ish and be like, yeah, all right. Like we get to sell high on some enthusiasm. But no, 5, it's in the dead zone, but there's clearly Rams support here. I would just kind of point out that, in general, Cooper Rush is, if he is in a negative game state in this game, I'm not excited to see him try to come back against a defense that has at least a couple of blue chip players. So I think realistically, this side breaks either way, depending on how successful the scripted portion of the offense looks for the Rams, which is the interesting matchup of the entire game. Rams offense versus Cowboys defense is the popcorn match here, because so far through the season, Dan Quinn is coordinating his butt off. And he's got a set of weapons on this defensive roster that are freaking awesome. So excited to see if that continues, because talk about a spot you would like to get your offense right after what you did on Monday Night Football against the Niners. Well, now you draw maybe, if not a top 5, maybe the second best defense in the NFL, with the Cowboys in your get right spot. So not interested in the side here, because I feel like this was Rams or pass coming into it, and the market is not going to give us a favorable price to get involved with the Rams. But very much worth watching if you're going to try to either kind of crystallize your opinion of this Cowboys defense or truly downgrade forever and ever this Rams offense.
Yeah, Rob, similar feelings for yourself in the sense that you don't have a strong opinion on a bet, but I guess you're looking forward to this game and seeing what happens.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, typically speaking, this would be like a buy low, sell high type of game, except the Rams aren't low enough to buy, in my opinion. Like you're still paying a premium to bet them. I think like the NFL market is changing year after year, but the reality is the Rams are nowhere near their Super Bowl level from a year ago. They can't run the ball effectively. Neither Darrell Henderson or Cam Akers has been effective. The offensive line has greatly regressed. Their left tackle, Joe Noteboom, is basically a turnstile at this point. They have injuries on the interior in David Edwards, Brian Allen, Coleman Shelton, all on the injury report. That's just a recipe for disaster against the Cowboys defense. I mean, that's what the Cowboys defense can exploit with Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence. And we've actually seen whenever the Rams have come up against a ferocious pass rush this year, whether that was the Bills in week 1, getting after them, the 49ers last week, the offense just can't move the ball. They don't have enough secondary weapons outside of Cooper Kupp. So, I don't really want to buy Dallas here. I think there are some scenarios where they are playing from behind. They have to force Cooper Rush to throw the ball, which he hasn't really had to do so far in the 3 games that he's played. But I mean, to me, it's still Cowboys or nothing. I cannot get over the fact that the Rams have given up 16 sacks, potentially could be down to a third string center. They're going up against the number 2 team in terms of sacks this season. Dallas hasn't given up 20 points yet this year. I don't know that the Rams can win by margin necessarily. So it's a pass. Lean Dallas. If we get 6s on the board, then there's going to be some consideration to betting the Cowboys.
Interesting. Suma, where are you kind of leaning on this game? I'll just bring a comment in, and this is White Light Bets on YouTube, and keep your comments coming in. I've seen a few great takes on the Tom Brady situation at the moment as well, so keep them coming in. But Suma, on the Rams, like I personally was very disappointed with them on Monday Night Football. Drew's mentioned that as well. Is where are you kind of leaning towards them at the moment, because they're definitely nowhere near the level they were a year ago?
Yeah, so I think if you talked about this look ahead line from the preseason and also from last week, the Rams were much higher. And if you told me before the season started, like the Rams would be -5-ish against a Cooper Rush-led Cowboys team, I would have told you, hey, just go out and bet it.
Let's go.
Simple. Yeah, let's go. Even last week, they were much higher, closer to the 7, I think, when I remember right. But we can also not deny the fact what the guy said, that the Rams have a very awful offensive line, and there is a strong correlation between the McVay offenses and good pass protection. Always when they had good pass protection, the scheme of the offense worked well. And when things broke down along the offensive line, it's not working well anymore. We saw that with Goff in 2019. We are seeing it with Stafford now. We are even seeing it with Geno Smith right now, which is the Shane Waldron, Sean McVay offense that works very well as long as Geno Smith is throwing from clean platforms. And the Cowboys pass rush is much, much better than expected. They are like a 4-headed monster up front. They're also using like formations where they have on obvious passing downs, 4 defensive ends with Dante Fowler, Micah Parsons, and DeMarcus Lawrence, just 4 defensive ends, not even defensive tackles. Then Anthony Barr as a blitzer from the Leo position. Like, this is a very fierce pass rush, and I really don't see how the Rams are going to move the ball efficiently through the air. So I agree, it's completely neutral for me right now, but if we're going to see some sixes, I will also consider the Cowboys.
Yeah, pretty much agreement there. No strong leans, but do keep an eye on that number on Sunday just before kickoff. If it does get to 6, maybe even higher than that, then do potentially the guys would recommend leaning towards the Cowboys. So yeah, we'll move on to our third game, which is Eagles versus the Cardinals. And we'll take a look at the betting that we have on Matchbook.com. Eagles are big favorites here at 1.46. The Cardinals available at 2.98. The point spread, Cardinals are getting a 4.5 start at 1.97 and a high enough total compared to the games we've had previously, 49.0. So Rob, straight to you on this one. You do like a bet here, and you're really fancying the under.
Yeah, I am. I mean, it's a little bit scary betting on unders in Eagles games, but I think this is a lot to do with the fact that I do not think Arizona is going to be able to score enough to put this game over the total. So I look at mismatches on paper. I think the Eagles defensive line against the Cardinals offensive line is a huge mismatch. Eagles have been generating a ton of pressure so far this year. Obviously, Kyler Murray has the ability to scramble a little bit and negate some of that. But when we look at this Cardinals offense this year, they have manufactured absolutely nothing until garbage time. I'm talking nothing until garbage time. Part of the reason why DeAndre Hopkins being out is massive for that offense. They can no longer stretch the field. They can't. Kyler Murray has the worst depth of target amongst all of the starting quarterbacks in the NFL right now. Extremely unusual for that to happen. They just don't have receivers that can get downfield. And ultimately, I think that makes it extremely challenging, even if they do throw the ball. The Eagles' success rate defending the pass is extremely high. The injury scare to Darius Slay looks like it's a non-issue. He'll probably play this week. I just think Philadelphia's defense is going to smother this Arizona offense. Now, on the other side of things, I'm a little bit concerned in terms of Philadelphia being able to score points because I do really like the offense. What I will say is Jordan Mailata, their left tackle, questionable right now to play. The Eagles play the Cowboys next week. I don't think they force him to play if he's not 100% because it's a huge game on deck for them next week. Right guard Isaac Sumalo, he might play, probably will. But regardless, this is the first instance this year where we're starting to see the Eagles offense deal with some injuries. We saw them deal with offensive line injuries last year, and that significantly reduced their production on offense overall. And we saw Jalen Hurts' statistics get much worse when they were dealing with O-line injuries. Is Arizona going to be the defense that necessarily exploits that? Probably not on every single possession, but they do have some semblance of a pass rush. When you look at their pressure rates this year, they're actually above 25%. Decent, not great, but enough where I don't think that the Eagles are significantly scoring over expectations. So personally, I think this total is a little bit too high. I had it closer to 47, which is more of a key number in the NFL. Have seen double-sided action, to be honest with you, this week, where some early under money, then some over money. So there's some disagreement in market, but I'm backing the under this week.
So yeah, you're happy 49.0 currently 1.93. That would be, you're happy enough with that and that price.
Absolutely. Yes.
Interesting. Okay, Drew, on to you. You played a bit of Arizona earlier in the week.
Yeah, I agree with Rob's handicap generally, except the Greg Dortch slander. My God, let's not look. No, the mighty Greg Dortch is not going to save the day here. The Arizona Cardinals to me are, and again, this is the second week in a row I bet against the Eagles, and again, like it goes a little bit against some of my futures portfolio because I have a lot of Eagles to be the 1 seed. I have a lot of Nick Sirianni to be coach of the year, and the equity that is piled up there is very, very, I'm protecting that to a degree. Last week, yeah, sure.
Just on that, I think people would love to know what's the biggest price out of all those Eagles futures?
25-1 to get the 1 seed, I think. That was the best price I got on that, but that was actually my average price, and that's closer to 18, I think. Best price on Sirianni I got was also kind of in the high teens, I think. Last week betting against the Eagles was, it wasn't a buy low on the Jaguars. The Jaguars were gaining some respect, and I missed the best of the price anyway. And, it was more of a, like, I still think I'm higher than market on Jaguars. So I felt like that was a good entry point. This cannot be a mistake. This is very much a buy low for the Cardinals. Cardinals team 1 year ago in this spot against the Eagles, of course, it's different rosters, but would have been 3.5, 4, 5-point favorites at home. And now they're 5.5-point dogs at home. That's a big adjustment. In the preseason, the look ahead markets for this game had Cardinals 2.5-point favorites, maybe 3, trending towards 3 at least. And then, now you're catching 5. This is a big adjustment. I don't really know what motivates the Eagles to win by margin here. This has all of the whiffs of a get in, win, get out type of a situation, just because, as Rob mentioned, Cowboys are on deck. It's a much bigger game. And so selling high to the degree I can on the Eagles, buying low to the degree I can on the Cardinals is sort of just the general vibe of this play. But if I wanted to point to a matchup that I'm potentially leaning on for any kind of confidence here, I'm hopeful that, this is a different, we're going to find, and, we're going to learn something about the Eagles defense, because through 4 weeks, they have yet to play any kind of mobility at the quarterback position. They have played 4 statues. And yes, their defensive line is awesome, and they have a decent matchup against an O-line that has questions. But Kyler Murray's mobility may be an X factor in this one to help drives extend and, just to kind of help overall keep them competitive in this contest. I think the back door is live because, again, I don't know that, Eagles are trying to win with margin here. A 2-score win, they probably call off the dogs and are trying to run out the clock in the second half, whereas Cardinals are very capable, I think, of getting you some garbage time points, as everyone knows they are capable of doing. Fourth quarter for the Cardinals is, for whatever reason, the quarter their offense wakes up. So Cardinals backdoor, Cardinals even coming away with the upset isn't out of my, the realm of possibilities for my range of outcomes here. So happy to take them with the points. I sold down to 4.5 because we're in the dead zone. I would look for 4.5 at 2.0 or better.
Okay. Suma, you lean towards the Eagles here, but would you share some of Drew's concerns there regarding the Eagles?
Yeah, so my concern would be that the Cardinals defense is hitting some plays with their blitzes and their man coverage, or that the Cardinals put up enough points in garbage time. Those would be my 2 concerns. In general, I think that the offense, as Rob has already mentioned, I mean, they are dead last in EPA per play in the first half, and that's with the 5th lowest turnover EPA per play. So they have not turned the ball over very much, and they're still 32nd in the league in the first half. Over the last 2 games, they only had 1 touchdown drive against the Rams and against the Panthers that went for more than 31 yards. So this is really an offense that is not working at all. I think they desperately need DeAndre Hopkins back. So that would change the complexity of their offense and also how defenses are going to play them. Because right now, defenses are just going to sit back, send 4, crush that offensive line, and sit on all these short routes that are coming from Greg Dortch and Marquise Brown and whatsoever. I think I just cannot imagine a scenario in which the Cardinals suddenly come out blazing and score like three touchdowns in the first half against this Eagles defense. And on the flip side, yes, Jalen Hurts was struggling against blitzes so far this season, but I also think that this Cardinals defense, so first of all, they are very boom or bust. They got rocked against the Chiefs. They got rocked in the first half by Las Vegas. They look better against Rams and Panthers, but it's really boom or bust, living off turnovers, sending the heat, playing man coverage behind it. In zone, they're very bad, and just try to see what happens. So since week 2, they are 30 EPA per play on neutral early downs, 28th in success rate. So they're really just living off turnovers, trying to get anything going by being aggressive. And to be honest, in theory, even though Jalen Hurts has been kind of bad against blitz, they still have all the ingredients to beat this kind of offense because they're very good in the screen game. The offensive line can take out the defensive line, and I'm not afraid of Isaiah Simmons and Zaven Collins like defending the second level against Jason Kelce at all. Also, when they play man coverage, Jalen Hurts will have some scramble opportunities. So, yes, I can see a scenario in which this defense can get to Jalen Hurts quite a few times, but I also think that this Eagles offense in general is still too good and has such a high floor. They will be able to score enough points to potentially cover this game, and then it depends on how long can the defense hold up and can the Cardinals, in my opinion, score enough garbage time points to cover the spread.
Yeah, definitely question marks over both sides here. So we're going to take Rob's underplay at 49.0, 1.93 currently on Matchbook. So we'll move on to the final marquee game, which is Bengals versus Ravens. And we'll take a look at the betting here. Bengals currently backable at 2.64, Ravens 1.57. The point spread is giving the Bengals a 3.5 head start. And the total is 47.5, slightly shaded towards the under. So Suma, we'll go to you for this one. Bengals, Ravens. Like, Ravens still, for me, when they have Lamar Jackson, they are still the most exciting team to watch. Maybe not as exciting as in previous years, but where are you at with the Ravens at the moment?
Yeah, so I want to start with the matchup of the Bengals offense against the Ravens defense. And yes, the Ravens have looked better against the Jets and against the Dolphins. And that was, if you watch the games, it was really just Joe Burrow or the offense in general being bad on early downs. And then on third down, Joe Burrow is just trying to make anything happen down the field when he sees a one-on-one matchup. That's basically their offense. I mean, the Bengals, for as much talent as they have a 58% early down pass rate, but they are averaging minus 0.18 EPA per play on early downs. This is dead last, behind the Jets, behind the Commanders, behind everyone. 29th in success rate. Against the Jets and Miami, they were averaging 0.01 EPA per play. That's still ranked only 20th over the last 2 weeks. Where they excelled at on defense and on offense is late downs. Over the past 3 weeks, they rank first in EPA per play differential on late downs, averaging 0.9 EPA per play. So for every late down on offense and defense, they're basically getting almost a full point in terms of expectancy. This has to regress to the mean at some point, and this might be this upcoming Monday. And when it comes to the Ravens defense, we saw the Bengals shredding them last season. That was the Wink Martindale heavy man coverage blitzing defense. They were also down like their first 4 cornerbacks or whatever, and the Bengals were just able to expose them. But this season, they have more manpower in the secondary. They have Marcus Williams now, Marcus Peters is back, Marlon Humphrey is back. And the Ravens defense is completely different this season. They are more of a zone coverage defense, middle of the field open, so more of these 2 high shells. They only blitz 22% of the time. They spent the second most snaps in cover 2, cover 4, cover 6, or cover 2 man. So all these cover 2 high looks. And against these specific defenses, Joe Burrow had 81 dropbacks according to Sports Info Solutions this season. And only 63 times he actually attempted a pass, because the rest were sacks or throwaways. There were 26 pressures on the plays against those kind of coverages. And when he actually attempted a pass against these coverages, he was averaging minus 0.13 EPA per pass attempt. So this is really a different Ravens defense. I expect the Bengals to struggle against this kind of defense again, exactly like they did against the Steelers and Dallas in weeks 1 and week 2. So I'm not really expecting an explosive Bengals offense this time. They also cannot run the ball at all. And on the other side, yes, Big Lou, their DC, has done an incredible job going back to the middle of last season, making so many smart adjustments at halftime. They don't really are getting any scores after half. It definitely felt that way. They did a great job against the Chiefs in the playoffs. They did a very good job this season already, but they also faced Mitch Trubisky, Cooper Rush in his first start, Joe Flacco, and last week, Tua, who might have played on a concussion. And then it was Teddy Bridgewater getting to the game late in the second quarter, I guess. Mm-hmm. So they have not really played anyone. They have looked fantastic on defense, no doubt about it. But this was more so a reflection of who they actually played. And the Ravens, their offense ranks first in the UA. Rashad Bateman might not be back. Ronnie Stanley might be back. I expect the Ravens running game to look better with Stanley and with a healthier J.K. Dobbins. And I also just think that the Ravens on offense might be that tiny bit better than the Bengals. And if the Bengals struggle and the Ravens get out to a lead, they can probably lean on the run game much better than the Bengals would otherwise. So yeah, I really like this matchup for the Ravens. I like them at -3, and yeah, those were my points.
You got more and more convincing as you went along there, Suma, and Rob. I could see you nodding in agreement with a lot of that.
It's hard to add much to that breakdown. I do agree with a lot of it. The point on Ronnie Stanley possibly being back, I think that's huge, but it's also important to note that Patrick McCarry is practicing for them as well. So it's very likely they're going to get an upgrade at left tackle no matter what, with one of those two guys very likely back in this game. I think the biggest thing for me in this one, I'll dismiss the previous year's matchup as well. Joe Burrow threw for 940 yards against the Ravens last year in 2 games. Very impressive. But if we do look back at those games, there's a ton of injuries in the secondary for the Ravens. And like Suma said, Wink Martindale blitzed the crap out of the Bengals last year, which is the way you don't want to play Joe Burrow, typically speaking, over the course of his career. And the Ravens do blitz a lot less under their new defensive coordinator this year. The big thing for me, though, is I actually think the Bengals defensive unit is really overrated right now. And particularly, I mean, it's possible that they're just fine, and you can only play the opponents that are put in front of you. But when you do look at the Bengals this year, they have faced Mitch Trubisky, they faced Joe Flacco, they faced Cooper Rush, they faced basically Teddy Bridgewater coming in cold for more than half a game. That's a very vast difference from the Lamar Jackson that they're about to face this week. And on top of that, the Bengals are blitzing at the 5th lowest rate in the NFL this year, which is going to be a problem if they continue that game plan, because Lamar has been actually excellent against coverage as well. So if you actually think about to the worst Lamar games, particularly the Dolphins on Thursday Night Football last year, it was when he got blitzed into oblivion and his receivers couldn't get separation. And the Bengals just don't do that. So I think that these teams are probably closer together than the market believes, but the matchup really favors the Ravens. That's how I view them personally. So I like Baltimore in this spot as well.
Yeah, some good cases there. Drew, you've taken some of Bengals +3.5. We have a comment here saying +3.5 is a gift from the football gods. It seems you were given that gift and you're not feeling too good about it.
Well, nervous. Because of all the points that you guys made are real. And actually, I would press these guys a little bit of, if you feel like the Ravens, even if the line is fair as fair can be, and you think there's a little bit of shade to plus EV on the Ravens right now, they're plus money to win the North. And I got news for you. Steelers aren't winning the North. The Browns needed to go 4-0 in their soft opener to have a chance to win the North. And this head-to-head, if -170 is a little short for the Ravens here, might as well just play Ravens North, because a win here puts them substantially ahead of the Bengals, who already, by the way, have a divisional loss to the Steelers. So this is a big kind of high leverage game for that race. And so for that reason, I think anyone with Ravens kind of enthusiasm should look to kind of that split stake maybe, or diversify a little. It's also worth noting that Cleveland has Cincy has the 6th toughest strength of schedule remaining, whereas Baltimore is 27th. So a lot easier from here. I'm pot committed on the Bengals for this game for a couple reasons, and I'll just kind of point out week 1, Ravens, who traditionally take preseason very seriously and who had a lot of time to prepare for a Jets team, went off as 6-point favorites in Meadowlands. Week 3, the Bengals, 6-point favorites in the Meadowlands. Market telling you not a big difference between those two teams, just based on common opponent in 1 and 3. Coming into the season, they were rated about the same. I had them rated about the same coming into the season, slightly higher on the Bengals, just because I thought if Burrow takes a year 3 step forward as a quarterback, if Chase takes a year 2 step forward as a wide receiver, all of a sudden you could be cooking with absolute propane. And it turns out we're not there yet. Like, clearly these guys have yet to realize anything that would represent an improvement over what we saw from them in December and January. So potential still there for them to get better offensively. We haven't seen it. As far as what have you done with the Ravens rating between preseason and now, if you're paying close attention and you're watching all these Ravens games, like, there wasn't a ton of uncertainty because there's a lot of continuity at coach and quarterback, right? So the questions were all about the getting healthy, staying healthy, having any kind of weapons emerge in the receiving game beyond Mark Andrews. And to this point, I think they've answered enough questions that you ought to have upgraded the Ravens offensively from what you had as a preseason prior. But I would say an equal downgrade is worthy of that defense. The defense is not creating anywhere nearly enough pressure to kind of be, the scary unit we have seen in the years past, even though the scheme has changed and they're not blitzing as often, that they're not generating pressure with base. And the secondary has healthy players back, but they still lack speed, particularly at the safety position. And to me, at least, that's a concern for this matchup in particular. I agree with Rob's sentiment that, the Ravens are analytically as sound as they come in the world of football. They know, and they better know, that using a blitz heavy approach for Burrow instead of a cover two high, too high, like, I would be shocked if they're not kind of leaning into the too high based on what all of the data is telling everyone who is, kind of paying attention. And so it should keep the Bengals in a little bit of check here. So at the end of the day, 3.5 for me was a number play because I just have these two teams rated too closely to each other to warrant a divisional matchup where you're catching a field goal and a hook. Special teams, pretty even here, maybe slight advantage to the Ravens because you have a better kicker, but the Bengals kicker is no slouch. I think ultimately this is probably team with the ball last wins. It's going to be a very entertaining game. If the Ravens, can generate a lead, am I nervous? Not really. That kind of takes the running game out of the picture for Zach Taylor, which I'm ready for. I'm almost going to be more nervous if the Bengals generate a lead and the Ravens kick it into comeback mode than I'm going to be the other way around, just because I have that little confidence right now in what Zach Taylor is doing. But all things told, I think this is going to be a really competitive game, and each team should be able to, whoever makes the best second half adjustments is going to win. As far as I can tell you, and for that, between all four units, Anaruma, which Suma mentioned, has been the best at that, and so I'll kind of hold my breath here. I'm pot committed on the Bengals. I bet a ton of them to win the North when they were in like the 300 and 400 range at 0-2, and I'm feeling nervous about this game in particular because of how high leverage it is.
Yeah, it'd be an interesting one. Maybe how you rate the teams versus the matchups. How does it work? We won't take a bet here yet. I don't want to ruin someone's best bet that's coming up there. So all poker faces there, in fairness, lads. Fair play. So we're just taking 2 bets so far from the games that we've covered. That's over 47.5. That's Chargers versus Browns at 1.98. Hopefully it's a repeat of last season's game. And under 49.0, 1.93 Eagles versus the Cardinals. And all the full bet recaps will be available at insights.matchbook.com. A lot more people visiting the site to get that recap there. I hope they're also tuning into the podcast as well. But it's great to see a lot of people over there checking out the lads' bets. So yeah, let's move on to any other bets, and we'll fly through these guys. Rob, take it away. Titans versus Commanders. Where are you looking here on the total?
I just think it's low. I think when the Commanders have not played an elite pass rush defense, they've proven that they can score. They put up 28 on the Jags. They put up 27 on the Lions. They look horrible the last 2 weeks, but that's against the Eagles and Cowboys defensive fronts. The Titans can get some pressure, but they just can't do it to the level that the Eagles and Cowboys can. So I think the Commanders score into the 20s here. Titans offense fell off last week in Indianapolis as soon as Treylon Burks got injured. Now they have a full week to kind of prepare without him. They're very good at scripted plays, designing up a good game plan, and the Commanders' defense is just not offering a whole lot. So I think that this is low. I mean, it's one of the lowest totals on the board this week, and with the defenses that are involved in this game, I just don't necessarily agree at where this number is.
Okay, there we go. Suma, you like the Dolphins minus 3.0 versus the Jets, 1.85 currently on Matchbook.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I think this is a fantastic matchup for the Dolphins. The Jets in their first game with Zach Wilson played against a Steelers offense that changed quarterbacks to a redshirt rookie quarterback at halftime, basically, who had 3 picks in the game. I think Minka Fitzpatrick left the game at some point. They lost another cornerback. They were without TJ Watt. Cameron Hayward was banged up, and it took the Jets until a final game-winning drive to sneakily win this game against the Steelers. I think this tells you everything you need to know about the state of the New York Jets right now. And the Dolphins typically play a defense that Zach Wilson completely struggles against. He really sucks against man coverage, going back to his first ever NFL game. He's completely abysmal against the blitz. He gets frantic in the pocket. He is spinning around and he doesn't know what he's doing as soon as pressure arrives and when the blitz gets home. And that's exactly the kind of defense that the Dolphins love to play. They love to play man coverage, single high. They like to blitz a lot. Their run defense is really amazing this season. So I expect the Jets to struggle on the ground. I expect their passing game to struggle against all these blitzes and the pressure that the Dolphins will bring against an offensive line of the Jets that is down to their, I don't know, third string right tackle. Dwayne Brown might not be ready. So Elijah Vera-Tucker might go from right guard to left tackle again. So it's really not looking great. And on the other side, I think Mike McDaniel against Robert Saleh is a crazy mismatch, and he has 10 days to prepare Teddy Bridgewater for the job. So yeah,
I love it.
This is Dolphins for me.
Jets hired the wrong Niners assistant.
Yeah, exactly.
We've got comment in there saying Dolphins -3 is definitely my favorite bet this week. Again, no spoilers, but it may be someone else's favorite bet this week. We won't ruin that so much. Drew, Seahawks versus the Saints. I haven't been a fan of the Seahawks, but there was definitely positive signs last week that they're potentially turning a corner, perhaps.
Yeah, counting on what we've seen from Geno Smith and Shane Waldron. That looks like solid synergy to me. Weapons in the passing game, outstanding. Jeff Okuda couldn't cover DK Metcalf. AJ Terrell couldn't cover DK Metcalf. Marshawn Lattimore is not going to be able to do it. I think realistically, Seahawks are going to be able to put up points in this one, and really, it's a bad spot for the Saints coming home from London. So I think taking the points with the with Seahawks is solid, and I think it would just be fun if the Seahawks are in general contenders in the NFC this year. Like that would just entertain a lot of people who had very low expectations for them, myself included preseason. And then I played a couple totals as well, like under 48 in the Tampa Bay game. I realistically could see Tampa Bay shut them out. I love the Tampa Bay defense's matchup in this one. And then I played over 43.5 in the Jacksonville Jaguars game. Basically, same sort of angle that existed for how challenging that Dolphins Bills game was on, what a physical tax that was on the Dolphins defensively. That exists here for the Jaguars as well. They lost the time possession battle 20-40 in that Eagles game. They were on the field for a long time and took a lot of body blows against a very strong offensive line. So I think the opportunity for Texans to get some points in this one is real. And the Texans defense is not good. So I would expect that the Jaguars can get into the high 20s, low 30s here. So the fact that that's sitting there under a key of 44 is appealing to me.
Yeah, that's Texans, Jags. And just very quickly, Drew, on this, you played 48.0. I think the line's around 46. Where would you?
Oh, yeah. Oh, that was a late move. I didn't really see that. Yeah. I would go down to 44.
Okay. Wow.
I think that's going to be a defensive masterclass by Todd Bowles after what he went through on Sunday night.
46.5. So I wasn't seeing things. I got a fright there when you said it, but yeah, that's interesting. Okay. Before we get into best bets, Matchbook Insights is where you can find our new welcome offer. It's Matchbook NFL is the bonus code, and you get bet £30 if you're living in the UK or Ireland, and you get £10 free bet for each following week on NFL. So it's a good way if you have little interest bets in the NFL for the next 3 weeks. Just sign up. All you have to do is enter the bonus code Matchbook NFL, and firm full terms and conditions are available on Matchbook Insights. Be gamble aware. So best bets time here. Winning record of 7-5. Very briefly, lads, what would you think of a team that's 7-5 in the NFL? What would you think? They're still hopes, playoff hopes for sure.
Yeah, but they're playoff hopes. But I think you're trying to save your season this week. You go to 7-6, and you're not feeling great.
See, yeah. I prefer to think of them as a dark horse Super Bowl contender.
Buy low, futures. Rob, take it away. Well, who do you like as your best bet?
So I've been looking very deeply into Tom Brady after a bad breakup. And what I've uncovered, no, I haven't. This has nothing to do with like any sort of teammates are going to rally around Brady or Tom Brady after a loss. I just think that we're now getting the Tampa Bay Bucks at full strength. And I incorrectly picked the Bucks last week against the Chiefs. That game got away from them on the opening kickoff where they fumbled. And then it was just like lights out for them. Things really spiraled and escalated very quickly in that matchup. I think this is a much better matchup for the Bucks offense. The Falcons defense in 4 games this season, they have forced 3 quarterback hurries. 3 quarterback hurries in 4 games. I think Brady's going to be able to dissect this defense pretty easily. And I do think that the Atlanta offense is starting to get figured out. They're obviously a heavy run offense overall. Marcus Mariota has 20 passing attempts in the last couple of weeks. I just don't see them being able to successfully move the ball and keep themselves in this game. We have seen Atlanta in a similar underdog range earlier this year. They did cover that game, losing 31-26 to the Rams. That game was 28-3. The Rams completely took their foot off the gas. The Falcons ended up blocking a punt and returning it for a touchdown. Rams took an intentional safety. That made the game look a lot closer than it actually was. I do think that this is a good bounce back spot for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And now with Kyle Pitts on the injury report, did not practice again with a hamstring injury. You lose another key weapon with Cordero Patterson already out for the Atlanta Falcons. I think it just makes it that much harder for them to score against this Bucs defense. So Tampa Bay, lay the points. Great point by Randy there too.
Yeah, Brady coming off a loss and a breakup, question mark. Good luck, Falcons. I couldn't really agree with that more. Suma, take it away. Your best bet. I didn't want to spoil it earlier.
Yeah, I mean, I think I sounded pretty euphoric about the Ravens already. I just love their matchup this week. Also, lots of pressure on me for after losing the last 3 best bets. So looking for a bounce back here with Lamar Jackson on primetime. What could go wrong? I hope not much. Yeah, I just like this matchup for the Ravens, especially their defense. I don't expect the Bengals offense to have a huge game. What I forgot to mention earlier is that T. Higgins might not be at 100%. He's dealing with a low ankle sprain that would favor this matchup even more. I just think that the Ravens play a style of defense that makes it very hard on the Bengals to get anything going on early downs. And on the other side, I think with Ronnie Stanley potentially coming back, with Patrick McCurry maybe playing a role, some rotational snaps could only help them. J.K. Dobbins getting healthier. I just think that the Ravens offense has too much firepower to play against a defense that has not faced anyone so far this year. And that, in conclusion, makes it a very sound bet at -3 for me.
Yeah, the current line is 3.5, but in Matchbook you can go to the alternative handicaps, and -3.0 is currently, as it says there, 1.89. Let's see how long that lasts. Drew, your best bet. You were in agreement with Suma earlier. A lot of the comments which is normally a bad sign, I think.
Suma's coming at me in the with the Bengals, but we're on the same train here with the Dolphins. I loved all his points. I think the man coverage especially is going to be problematic for Zach Wilson this week. And realistically, don't understand this market. Dolphins and Ravens and Bengals, we've seen those teams all play each other now. There's not that much gap between how you would rate any of those teams. Now, the Dolphins go from Tua to Teddy Bridgewater. That is neutral to small downgrade. I give most of the Dolphins offensive credit to Mike McDaniel, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. And so sliding Teddy Bridgewater in there with 10 days to work with the ones, I think is going to be just fine. On the flip side, you have a Jets team that is going from Flacco to Zach Wilson. That is a neutral to small downgrade, considering the quality of defense he will be facing. The Dolphins defense looks poor against the pass. If you look at the advanced numbers, guess what? They've played Joe Burrow. They've played Lamar Jackson. They've played Josh Allen in the last 3 weeks. Any defense would look suspect considering strength of opponent there. And so here we are now, Dolphins, Ravens, Bengals, all about the same. Ravens and Bengals went into Meadowlands as 6-point favorites. The Dolphins are sitting here at 3.5. I don't think that this makes any sense in the world. I think the Dolphins can win this one with margin. And realistically, I think the entire Jets win last week was a little fraudulent. And I think, Zach Wilson is due for an especially troubling game, considering the offensive line, considering the scheme he's up against, and considering the fact that this Dolphins defense is underrated and coming off of 10 days rest.
Interesting. I do like those best bets, so let's see how we get on there. My thanks to Suma, Drew, Rob. If you have watched the video, do give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed what you heard, and we do want to hear from you as well, not just in the live chat. For those watching back on the live stream, do comment your best bet of the weekend, because there's a lot of after timers in the comments, so I want to see them beforehand, Sunday 6 o'clock UK time. And let's hope the guys can get on to, keep the winning record going on the best bets. Check out insights.matchbook.com for full recap of all the bets. Until then, take care, enjoy the football, and we'll be back same time, same place. Bye-bye.